Check one, check two. I'm the anchor / rapper that you never thought would happen. Commentary get it cracking like pads when they start whacking. Applaud like studio audience audio. It's the Rob You Sports 2 show. Is that so? Rob You Sports countdown to kickoff. I spark conversation like flicking a big off. Late night flows and show like Leno. Sports book party like Vegas or Reno. Bodyguard Gino and Sky Boss Casino the Nino. Good fella from food and beverage. Robbie, you, Pherro, Knicks, Golden Boy 2, Leverage Bingo, Jackpot plays like Tracy Ete. It's Rob You Sports, you down, get set, ready. It's Rob You Sports, you down, get set, ready. It's Rob You Sports, you down, get set, ready. Break the huddle, season 6, keep it steady. Little something, yo. I want to welcome y'all back to the Rob You Sports Stu Show NFL 2023. As we wind down the preseason and come closer and closer to the regular season action of the 2023-2024 NFL season. So thanks for joining me. And you know, it's been a lot going on in the league, but some of the top headlines and stories we've been seeing has been recently the running backs have teamed up on a conference call to discuss some of the situations and some of the things they can do to try to have their voice heard and also take a stand against some of these owners and GMs who are now refusing to pay these running backs these top salaries or more than what they've been getting because the position has recently been devalued with the onset of passing and a more quarterback-friendly, receiver-friendly league. But we have seen some of these running backs take a stand, and some of them have been able to get pretty good results. And the most recent has been definitely running back for the Las Vegas Raiders, Josh Jacobs, who was holding out, not attending preseason play or training camp for that matter, after the Raiders refused to give him a contract extension and instead decided to put him on a 1-year franchise tag, which would have been maybe around $10 million. Well, now the Raiders have had a change of heart and have decided they will compensate their stellar running back, which he of course deserves more than what they had agreed upon with this restructured franchise tag. But it did definitely do enough to convince him to sign, and he has the potential to earn up to $26 million for over the next 2 years if he is again franchise tagged by the Raiders next offseason. But with this restructuring, I believe he has a potential to earn up to $13 or $14 million this year with thus restructuring. So that definitely paid off for Josh Jacobs, who has been one of the best running backs in recent memory. And speaking of running backs, Jonathon Taylor is still in limbo with the Indianapolis Colts, as they will try to move Jonathon Taylor, as they've already granted him a trade request, but now it's just the Colts being able to find an offer that they're comfortable with and something that they feel is going to be in their best interest to receive compensation for the player with the talent of a Jonathon Taylor. So we'll see if Jonathon Taylor can find his pot of gold at the end of the rainbow after deciding he did not want to remain an Indianapolis Colt, and after these running backs are starting to take things into their own hands and take back some of that power from some of these organizations and saying, well, we deserve more, we want more, and you know, we out here getting beat up, we out here, you know, putting our bodies and our limbs on the line for this franchise and for these teams. And you know, of course they believe some of these running backs can be replaced for cheaper talent, or you know, late round picks or free agent picks or undrafted players. But for the truly stellar, top-notch, top-flight running backs, they definitely deserve to be compensated. And there's even been talks of a running back union, and also, like I said before, there was the running back conference call. So these running backs are seeing what's going on, and a lot of them don't like it, don't appreciate it, but they know the market, they know the game, and they know they have to do what they can while they're still healthy and able to earn these large lump sums of money. They just want those lump sums to be larger for their position, as running back is one of the lowest valued and paid positions in the NFL as far as skill players are concerned. So we see how things move forward with Jonathon Taylor, but Josh Jacobs of the Raiders was able to restructure his franchise tag and get some of the compensation he was seeking. And this is something similar to what Saquon Barkley was able to do with the New York Giants as well. In other sports news, we have the ESPN talent firings, where we've recently seen a lot of ESPN talent being let go by the network, and a few of them were some head scratchers for me, but some of my favorite personalities that were let go from ESPN include Jalen Rose, NBA analyst and commentator, also Keyshawn Johnson, NFL commentator and also host of the morning show. Also Max Kellerman, boxing commentator, sports commentator. And also the firing of former NBA coach Mark Jackson. That really was a head scratcher because to me, you know, he has the experience as a player and a coach, and he also was a great analyst. And maybe it has something to do with Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy and some of those takes of some of the commentating and some of the officials who they would definitely agree some of those calls were terrible during these games that they're commenting on live. So maybe ESPN thought that was a conflict of interest to have some of your top broadcasters bashing the officiating of the league that you have acquired the rights to broadcast. So, but in the situation of these ESPN talent firings, you know, I think it shows that for a lot of these sports broadcasting networks and everything like that, maybe they felt some of these commentators were beginning to get a little big for their britches, or beginning to speak on some things that were outside of sports and outside of the lines. For example, maybe they felt some of these commentators were just a little too woke or a little too pro-black or speaking out on different things. We all know the last few years with George Floyd and civil rights and police brutality, a lot of these sports commentators have been a lot more vocal and a lot more assertive with their views and voicing their views and opinions on certain things that have been transpiring in the black and minority community. So ESPN has been also losing money, and you know, getting rid of some of these big contracts definitely will help their bottom line, even though they are still going to be paying some of these guys for recently signed contracts, but they'll be able to write that money off anyway. But as we've seen the ESPN talent firings, we've also seen on the flip side of that, Skip Bayless reloading for his Undisputed morning sports show, whereas Shannon Sharpe has decided to step down, and the show had to basically go on hiatus because there was not anyone in particular already lined up or assigned to be in those slots to battle Skip Bayless every morning, or you know, have those kind of structured arguments, if you will. So Skip Bayless, seeing the ESPN firings, he was able to acquire some of that talent from ESPN, including Keyshawn Johnson, Rachel Nichols. Also, outside of ESPN, he was able to bring in Lil Wayne and Richard Sherman, who he's also had some spirited debates with, Richard Sherman that is. And also he will be getting some assists from Acho and Nick Wright, also of Fox Sports. So even with the ESPN talent shakeups, we have seen some of these fired personalities and analysts and broadcasters be able to find a new home elsewhere. But also, as somebody who really had a passion for sports journalism and broadcasting, one thing I will say is over the last, I'll say decade or decade and a half, I really saw the downfall of ESPN, where I thought they had their height in the late 90s and early 2000s. But I think the downside of ESPN and also a lot of sports commentating, it became when it became less about journalism and more about opinion and more about taking shots at players and taking shots at organizations and picking on people and making certain people like you're targeting them every day just to trash them and things like that. And we've seen different analysts go back and forth with different YouTubers and also present and past sports athletes. So we've seen Kwame Brown go at Stephen A. Smith, and we've recently seen Lonzo Ball going at Lonzo Ball recently going at Stephen A. Smith over certain sources and things he's heard, and Ball wanted to prove him wrong that he can sit down and stand up and whatever Stephen A. heard was wrong or whatever. So we've been seeing this go on from time to time where these commentators get in these chairs and it becomes like their bully pulpit or their soapbox to just target certain people or talk down on certain people. And I think that really takes away from the actual sports journalism of it. Don't get me wrong, there are shows where it's entertaining for commentators and analysts to debate and argue and speak on their opinions. But I think when it becomes about the talent and the commentator just picking on certain people or bashing certain people and it becomes repetitive, it makes it seem like it's really personal, like they have something against this athlete, whereas the athlete or the former athlete never had that platform to really go after the commentators or the announcers or the anchors as much as they do now. I mean, don't get me wrong, throughout history there's been times when, of course, athletes and the media did not get along. But in today's age, we've seen athletes and former athletes go to that next level of, if they want to put something on their platform or Instagram or YouTube, they do it. And it really should make a lot of these commentators second guess if they want to really attack these athletes so viciously and maliciously, because these athletes have a voice as well and they have an opinion as well, and you may not be their cup of tea either. So also with the ESPN shakeups and the Fox Sports shakeup, as somebody who had a passion for sports journalism and really pursued this and really had aspirations of being an ESPN anchor or a sports broadcaster on that level in that time when they weren't so watered down and they weren't the only, and they were the only game in town. It's different now. ESPN isn't the only sports outlet. There's hundreds of sports outlets. There's YouTubers. There's different ways you can get sports news and sports media and highlights outside of just a few networks monopolizing it, as it was in early 2000s or in the early days of cable and satellite. So now what I'm seeing is a lot more sports journalists who are now mostly retired players. It's like retired NBA and NFL players, they seem to have it on lock. It's rare that you see someone who was not a former pro athlete speaking on the game on that kind of national platform or a national televised show. And then we have a small handful of former journalists who have basically kind of climbed their way to the top of the sports media, sports journalist world, because they've been so opinionated and they have basically, jockey for position. And, these are the people that you see on these morning sports shows. But outside of these few handful of journalists who are so opinionated, everyone else on most of these morning sports talk shows are former athletes. And it's like, where are the regular sports journalists outside of sports athletes? We don't really see a lot of that. It's like it's kind of been the industry is kind of shrunk into either you're a former pro athlete or you're an opinionated former, sports journalist. So that's kind of like, I guess that's what the sports game has come to. But that's just the microcosm of what's out here, because outside of these professional former pro athletes speaking their mind, and outside of these journalists speaking their mind, there's a whole landscape out here of, YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagrammers, and Facebookers, and these people are bringing you, the public, their opinion, their voice, and their platform. So, the subscription numbers for a lot of these networks is falling and has, fallen on deaf ears because people cut the cord. People got tired of hearing the same style of journalists or the same journalists, and it became time for people to have access to technology and different platforms where they can make their own media and get their own voice out. So it's just a different day and age in the sports journalist world. But we'll see how the ESPN talent firings affect ESPN moving forward, and also we'll see how Skip Bayless reloads with Undisputed. Now, with new talent coming in to save the day with Shannon Sharpe's departure, and we'll speak on Shannon Sharpe's departure a little later. And in other off-season news, we had early in preseason Oher BLINDSIDED catching some flack from some of his offensive players who actually went behind his back to head coach Juan Rivera, and it was just like, oh, coach is too hard on us. He talked too much shit. He's just too aggressive. He's too intense. But it's like, this is the NFL. Are you trying to win or are you trying to lose? Or you want your coach to hold your hand and, tell you bedtime stories? Like, this is the league, man. So I think Juan Rivera was wrong for making that into something with the media. He spoke out about it. But also I think that Oher BLINDSIDED was doing his thing as coming over from the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, that team is basically a dynasty right now. So he's coming over to the Washington Commanders. They haven't really done anything on the field lately to solidify themselves as a top NFC team. And the only thing when you think about the Commanders, all you really think about is the poor previous ownership and the disaster that was behind the scenes, and different things going on with the staff and not really producing a lot on the field. So Oher BLINDSIDED also knowing that his name is on the line, his reputation is on the line. He's worked hard to get where he is, and a lot of these owners and general managers have been, basically, not giving him the opportunity to be a head coach. So when he gets to the Washington Commanders, he's not going to go easy on these players and, tell them what they want to hear and pat them on the head. He's going to let them know, like, I want to win. I want to be successful, and I'm putting my name and my reputation on the line with this as the offensive coordinator. So I think Juan Rivera was wrong to speak out about that to the media. And also, of course, Oher BLINDSIDED and Juan Rivera definitely had to have some behind the scenes talk about this. Like, yo, man, don't be taking the player's side. That's why they came to you, because I was too hard on him. But they have to realize I want to win, and I want to win now. So we'll see how things move forward with Oher BLINDSIDED and that Washington Commanders offense, and we'll see if he can reach some of those same heights that he reached in Kansas City. In other news, Purdy BOI to men. So there's been a lot of conversation, and there's been a lot of speculation, and a lot of these commentators and hosts of these morning shows and NFL shows, they've been going back and forth and just trying to figure out, when will Brock Purdy be okay when he comes back? Is he going to have the same kind of effectiveness? And he's coming off of surgery. Is he going to be able to still do the same things he was doing before? But it's like, when he came out in the preseason, he was still sharp. He's still effective. He's still making fast, quick decisions. He's still a good decision maker. He still gets the ball out. So really, all that talk was much to do about nothing. Now, when the regular season begins, we'll see how he performs week in and week out. But coming off the surgery in preseason, he did look to be the same quarterback. And on the flip side of that, there was the whole Trey Lance debacle or kerfuffle. And the Trey Lance thing has now come to an end now. This was breaking news this weekend on Friday that Trey Lance was traded to the Dallas Cowboys to be a backup of Dak Prescott. And this comes after days and days of the media, sports media, regurgitating the same talking points, the same conversations, and the same rhetoric of, oh, is Trey Lance a bust, and the 49ers gave up so much for him. And it's like you keep regurgitating the same ideas over and over. Like, I don't think he can be a bust if he hasn't really even played that much football yet. And some of that, a lot of that wasn't his fault. He had an injury, but also when push came to shove and the 49ers realized what they had in Brock Purdy, he was just a better athlete. He was just a better quarterback and a better leader of the team. So, of course, Trey Lance had the athleticism and the flash and the flair, but Brock Purdy has so much more, quarterback skill, development. He had the experience of being a 4-year starter in college, and he's a talented quarterback. So when it came time for him to get a chance to play in the league, even if he was the last player picked, he still could come into that offense and take charge and do what he does as a quarterback. Now, it is a good system to be in, to play in that Shanahan offense, because I think it's very meticulous. It's very structured as far as, I don't think they put a quarterback in a lot of bad positions. And I think if Trey Lance would have maybe been healthier or been a little more astute in picking up the offense, I think that offense would look differently, because I think with Trey Lance, they were going to try to use him as more of a Robert Griffin or Colin Kaepernick, or that style of zone read RPO type quarterback. But with Purdy boy, with Zach Purdy, with Brock Purdy, it's like they can use him as more of a traditional quarterback, and he has the intangibles, the quick release, the good decision making to get the ball down the field and make some things happen. So I definitely think the best quarterback won that job, and I think Purdy was the best quarterback despite what the 49ers gave up to get Trey Lance. So it was time for them to let Trey Lance go. They gave him some time away from the team after he was demoted to third string, just to let him know, like, well, you probably won't be second string here, so if you want to go somewhere and try to get a fresh start, we all for that. And it was probably in their best interest to be able to remove that stigma, remove that negative energy and that negative cloud of, oh, we gave up so much for him and he's not even our guy. But they just found a diamond in the rough with Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy just came in and he was that effective. So there was no need to keep, being on the fence with Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, because Purdy clearly outplayed him and he was a better value as the last pick in the league. He's not making so many millions of dollars every year, and that frees up money for other positions and other needs that the team has roster personnel wise. So Trey Lance, trade day, scrutiny, and now to the Dallas Cowboys for a fresh start with America's team. So we'll see how Trey Lance performs with the Cowboys moving forward. And then we have a few lingering running back vets as the preseason comes and winds down. Still, Kareem Hunt is out there, and also Leonard Fournette. So we'll see where these two talented running backs end up, as some other running backs have found new homes, such as Ezekiel Elliott joining the New England Patriots. How will his impact be? Will he be sprinkled in here and there? Will he be a third down back, a short yardage back? Or what does he have left in the tank? Well, we'll see. We've seen Belichick and the Patriots take some flyers and risk on previous running backs who were a little up in age or a little, not journeyman, but been here and been there. So maybe he can do some things like Corey Dillon or LeGarrette Blount did as they were getting along further in their careers. So we'll see what Ezekiel Elliott can do for the Patriots. Another running back to catch on in the preseason was Dalvin Cook, joining that Jets team, which looks very stacked and very ready to make some things happen. And how will Cook impact the Jets? Also, they have running back Breece Hall, who will be returning from injury. So Jets will have a nice 1-2 punch at running back, not to mention Aaron Rodgers and a super stout defense. So definitely a nice pickup. And speaking of nice pickups, we have Jadeveon Clowney joining the Ravens. So adding some stout and some pass rush to that Ravens front seven. Nice pickup for the Ravens. And in other football news, we had the recent release of the Johnny Manziel doc on Netflix. And I checked it out. It was a nice piece. And Johnny Menzel Mania was once again sweeping the nation with the release of this doc. And it got to delve into his life and times as a standout quarterback in high school and also a standout quarterback at Texas A&M, where he went on to win the Heisman Trophy as a true freshman and have some great adventures as a rock star college quarterback. Not to mention all the money that he gained from signing autographs and skirting the NCAA rules, which they did catch him kind of, and he was suspended for one half of a game. But a lot of that money that he was able to get, he was able to downplay it and make it seem as if he came from money, because there was the story circulating that he came from oil money and his family had money. So it was almost natural to see him, jet setting across the U.S. to different high-profile sports games and events and concerts and hanging out with celebrities, because supposedly he came from money, but a lot of that money actually came from signing autographs and selling them through his homeboy, and before he became an NFL player. Now, once he became an NFL player, one thing that Doc did show is once he got the money and football became more of a job and a career, he didn't have the passion anymore. And even in the doc himself, he said that he didn't really like Cleveland, and he felt like he wasn't going to be there that long. So I think it was a case of Menzel wanting everything that came with the game, the glamour, the glitz, the flash, the money, the notoriety. But when it came to doing those things that would keep him in the game, studying film, practice, training, intangibles, discipline, effort, hard work, he wasn't trying to do those things. I think he fizzled and flamed out early because he was given so much so fast as the star of the Texas A&M Aggies, because he really put that program back into a national conversation with some of those wins and some of those things he was able to achieve, especially the Heisman. It put a big spotlight on him, and he partied like a rock star. But you can't always party like a rock star in the NFL, because you're going against grown men, and these men have families and wives and mortgages, and these men are competitive and they want to be the best, and they're not just going to let you come out there and play any, they're not going to let you just come out there and run all over them every game. They're going to study film. They're going to see what you like to do. They're going to figure out ways to stop you and ways to contain you. And Menzel did not last long in the league. So I think it was a story about, it was just a story about his journey as becoming a college athlete / semi-pro athlete in college, when he was getting paid and compensated, everything he did for the university, with everything the university did for him. And then when he got to the next level, professional football, and it became a job, he didn't have the passion for it or the love of the game anymore, because his love of the game was about what the game could do for him and not what he could do for the game. But Johnny Menzel wasn't the first quarterback of that stature or skin tone that we've seen hyped to the heavens, because even before Johnny Menzel, there was a Tim Tebow, and even around that time, there was Baker Mayfield, and there were several other of these quarterbacks who get hyped to the heavens as the great white hope quarterback, and especially if they have the least bit of mobility, they just get hyped up. But you have to be able to perform and produce, not only in college, in the NFL. And a lot of these college quarterbacks coming out, when they come from these top flight programs, top-notch coaches and top-notch facilities, and used to being ranked in the top 25 or top 10 every week in college, they may not always have that same hunger and that same passion and that same desire and drive once they get to the league, and it's a little different. And you're not playing, with a whole stacked roster of 4 and 5 star athletes every week, and you're going to a team that's not that good because they had a high draft pick, so they didn't have a good record last year, and they count on you to be the savior, and you just want to go party and hang out. It's not always easy for a lot of these high profile quarterbacks once they reach the league, because it's a different game, it's a different mindset, it's a different system, it's a different roster. And if you don't have the love of the game and you don't have that chip on your shoulder to be the best and to rise above whatever draft pick you were slotted at and whatever people think your ceiling is, you're not gonna make it in the league. And we've seen the Brock Purdy's, and we've seen the story of a Tom Brady, a late round pick, who was able to exceed everyone's expectations except for himself, because it's how bad he wanted it, and he was in the right place at the right time with the right coach and the right system, where there was a strong defense on the other side. He didn't have to do everything, and as the defense wasn't always the strongest, the offense came on with weapons, and he was able to continue his ascension and his progression as quarterback. So one thing to take away from the Johnny Menzel mania and some of these hype quarterbacks coming out of these top programs, it's not always where you get drafted. It's about where you go as far as organization, what they're asking you to do as far as the offense, and also what you're going to do as far as effort, as far as preparation, training, studying film, watching film, bonding with your teammates, getting chemistry down, getting the playbook down, and being a professional athlete. Because there's a difference between college, semi-pro, and professional. So, speaking of professional, former professional athlete turned commentator Shannon Sharpe will be taking his talents from Fox Sports to ESPN First Take to team up with Stephen A. Smith. And also, I would imagine he will be seen maybe on NFL Live occasionally, or Monday Night Countdown, and possibly Sports Center. We know how ESPN like to put those anchors and hosts through that ESPN car wash, aka go on this show, go on that show, go on this show, go on that show. So we heard Charles Barkley laughing and clowning about it, like, yo, they have you on every show. They have you on ESPN 3. They have you on ESPN Deportes. So we'll see how many shows they have. We'll see how many shows they have Shannon Sharpe on. But Shannon Sharpe also taking his Club Shay Shay podcast to the volume. So Shannon Sharpe doing his thing, moving around some of that IP, including himself, to a better opportunity. And when it comes to my top AFC teams to look out for this season, gotta go Chiefs, Jets, Ravens, Bills, Bengals, Titans, Dolphins, Chargers, Jaguars, and maybe, just maybe, the Patriots. And when it comes to my top NFC teams, gotta go Eagles, Cowboys, Saints, Lions, 49ers, Seahawks, Vikings, Bears, and maybe even the Commanders. We'll see. if the enemy can get that offense up to snuff, and we know that the Commanders had a stout defense in past years, so they should be up there. So, coming up in block 2 of the Rob U Sports Stu Show, Pherro Knicks picks. So keep it locked. Check 1, check 2. I'm the anchor / rapper that you never thought would happen. Commentary get it cracking like pads when they start whacking. Applaud like studio audience audio. It's the Rob U Sports Stu Show. Is that so? I got what you want. The NFL mixed with hip-hop phone and spitting sport news. The heads of blues like you bet your team, you know they would lose. Don't get it confused. I'm like Shit Calm mixed with Uncle Scrooge. Make duck, get bucks, while chicks club. What? Shine like wine from water. Wait, grapes. R.I.P. Stu with Scott the late great. Welcome back to the Rob U Sports Stu Show, NFL 2023. Going into week 1. So let's take an early look at the picks. I know it's still a few lingering free agents out there, and some of them definitely could, potentially improve a team's offense or defense, depending on where they go and where they plugged in at. But in this Rob U Sports Stu Show, Season 6, Episode 3, we're going to look at all of the Week 1 picks from my perspective of which team I feel will be able to get the W and how I think these teams, matchups, and games are going to play out. So without further ado, let's get into it. Thursday, September 7th, Detroit Lions at Kansas City Chiefs. So, Detroit has been one of those teams on the rise with a strong defense and now acquiring some key draft picks and offensive weapons to go along with a strong, sturdy defense, good defensive coaching, some more weapons for Jared Goff, and also improved running game and some receiving weapons. So against Kansas City, who we know is going to be a high-potent, high-powered offense, always going to be definitely pushing the ball downfield with Pat Mahomes. We'll sprinkle in the running game, but definitely got to watch Kelsey and also have to watch those wide receivers of that Kansas City Chiefs. They're all fast, they all can catch, and they all can be targeted and hit by Pat Mahomes. But in this game, I'm going to go with the upset, unconventional Detroit 24 over Kansas City Chiefs 23. I know some people may doubt the ability of the Lions to pull this off, but I think it will be a good game, definitely. But it's the aspect of the defense versus the offense. And that Detroit Lions defense may do some things to kind of get Kansas City a little off balance or out of rhythm. And then the Detroit Lions has an improved offense that I think may be able to get some scores against that Kansas City defense. So definitely be a good game, one of my games of the week. Now let's look at Sunday, September 10th, Carolina at Atlanta. I'll say Carolina 27, Atlanta 17, with that strong Carolina defense, running game, and also the new rookie being sprinkled in there as well, Bryce Young. And how will he be deployed? What will be his, scripted plays and schemes and concepts they're going to focus on with him? Well, we'll see. And with the Falcons, I think that they still have to probably get that offense a little more on track, but I'm looking forward to seeing what their rookie running back will be able to do in his debut. But I'll say Carolina 27, Atlanta 17. And then with Arizona at Washington, Arizona may possibly be without Kyler Murray for a little while until he feels that he's ready to play. Also, the Washington Commander Redskins now with new ownership. How will they come out with the debut of, week 1, 2023 season now with new ownership, new vibes and optimism. Also, Eric Bieniemy in the fold as offensive coordinator, coming with Juan Rivera in that defensive mind. So I believe that I believe that the Washington Commanders will defeat the Arizona Cardinals with a final score of Washington 30, Arizona Cardinals 13. And then we have Cincinnati Bengals going to take on the Cleveland Browns, the Battle of Ohio. And I believe that Cincinnati's offense will be able to keep pace with the Browns, who now will have Deshaun Watson with a full offseason to get better acclimated with his team and get that chemistry with the receiving core. But I think Cincinnati 20, Cleveland around 16, but it should be a close game. Then we have Houston Texans going to take on the Baltimore Ravens now with that revamped offense, bringing in Todd Monken to go with Lamar Jackson and all of the things he can do. Also bringing in OBJ, new receivers, young receivers, talented receivers. So it's going to be a new look Baltimore offense going against Houston, and now with their new rookie quarterback. Will CJ Stroud get the nod, or will they go for some experience? And we'll see how it turns out. But in this game, I do believe that Baltimore Ravens will defeat the Houston Texans with a final score of Baltimore 34, Houston 17. And then we have the Jacksonville Jaguars going to take on the Indianapolis Colts. Jacksonville now with Trevor Lawrence getting in his stride as a quarterback and leading that offensive team with their strong defense. And also the Colts bringing in Anthony Richardson, rookie quarterback, the athleticism and versatility. And, they've been having some beef and some problems with their running game and the running back, not being compensated as he would want to and going back and forth with the owner. But in this game, I do believe that Jacksonville will defeat the Colts with a final score of Jacksonville 30, Indianapolis Colts 26. And then we have San Fran taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. San Fran with that strong offense and defense. And Pittsburgh with that strong defense, offense coming around. How will their quarterback be in this? Now as he gets a little more experience with the Steelers offense. And will that Pittsburgh defense be able to shut down that 49ers running game and pass game? Well, I think it'll be a close, slug-it-out game, very physical, lots of hits, and lots of action as well. I go San Fran 19 over Pittsburgh 17, but this will be a good game. And then we have Tampa Bay going to take on the Minnesota Vikings. Tampa Bay now without Tom Brady, bringing in Baker Mayfield and also quarterback competition. And then we have Minnesota Vikings letting go of Dalvin Cook, and now Cousins and Jefferson forming that tandem at quarterback and receiver. So Tampa Bay, I believe, will fall to the Vikings with a final score of Tampa Bay 20, Minnesota Vikings 29. And then we have Tennessee Titans now with DeAndre Hopkins in the fold, going to take on those New Orleans Saints now with Derek Carr in the fold. So I believe this will be a nice game. And also Tennessee will make it close with New Orleans, but I'll say New Orleans 27 over Tennessee 23, but this will be a good one. Then we have Green Bay going to take on the Bears. Green Bay now with Jordan Love leading the offense, and also Chicago Bears bringing in some weapons to go along with Justin Fields. And a lot of people have some, I believe, optimism for the Bears this year. We'll see how Green Bay goes forward with Love and the play calling and what he's being asked to do, and how will the team develop cohesion and chemistry now without Aaron Rodgers, and his Love, comes into the forefront as offensive leader and QB general. Well, I believe it'll be a close, high-scoring game, and I'll say Green Bay 31 falling to the Bears 33 in a close, high-scoring game, what we'll see. And then we have the Los Angeles Rams going to take on the Seattle Seahawks. These teams know each other well. Two NFC West opponents, both with nice histories and resumes for recent success. And with the Rams, how will Matt Stafford be in this offense? And with the Seahawks, will Geno Smith be able to continue the good things he was showing last year? And how will that Seahawks defense be? And how will that Rams secondary be now without Jalen Ramsey? Well, I'll say Seattle over the Rams. Seattle 26 over the Los Angeles Rams 17. But this also will be a good game in my opinion. And we have the Vegas Raiders going to take on the Broncos. Vegas Raiders bringing in Garoppolo to go along with McDaniels, and also having that same kind of problems and beef as the Indianapolis Colts and their running back, the Las Vegas Raiders, and also Josh Jacobs not seeing eye to eye on contracts and franchise tags. So then we'll see how the Broncos will be with now Russell Wilson and Sean Payton as head coach and QB duo. But in this game, I do believe that the Broncos will get back to some winning ways. 31 over the Vegas Raiders 24. But this will be a good one. And then we have Miami Dolphins going to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers having that high-flying offense with Herbert and also a nice receiving core. And then Eckler, also another running back who's disgruntled and reworking some negotiations to get things more in his favor of his compensation. But the Miami Dolphins with Tua bringing in some additional weapons at receiver and also bringing Jalen Ramsey, who's injured right now. Well, I'll say Miami will defeat the Chargers with a final score: Miami 34 over Chargers 30. And then we have the Philadelphia Eagles going to take on the New England Patriots. Philadelphia coming off that Super Bowl loss, showing so much potency and potential with that offense and the way the team plays as a unit defensively and all those star players. And New England still probably trying to find their way with young Mac Jones and how will he be with this offense now with a new offensive coordinator who's more seasoned and experienced, Bill O'Brien. And how will Belichick's defense be? Also bringing in rookie cornerback Christian Gonzalez. And in this game, I believe that Philadelphia will be able to hold off New England for a late comeback, with Philadelphia winning 30 over the Patriots 24. And then in Sunday Night Football, we have Dallas with so much going on and so much acquisitions, and bringing in Brandon Cook at receiver and also bringing in Stephon Gilmore on defensive back end. And then the New York Giants with so much going on with their decision to reward Daniel Jones and also not give Saquon a long-term or lucrative contract as opposed to the franchise tag. And now, they had some back and forth and they were able to kind of negotiate some things and work some things out. But also, in this game, I don't think the Giants will be able to compete with the Dallas Cowboys with so much weaponry and now improved defense and offense. Dallas 29 over the Giants 16. And in the Monday Night Football finale, we have Buffalo at New York Jets. I say Buffalo 23 over the Jets 34. Jets 34 over the Buffalo Bills 23 in Aaron Rodgers' debut. So we'll see. And this concludes another episode of the Rob You Sports Do Show. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Peace, and I'll see you on the next. Be blessed.